you occasionally, things get going, you make out pretty hard, and you're like, and then I remember like,
nowhere in the Bible does it say that you can't dry hump in the passenger seat of your truck. Welcome to Growing Up Christian. I'm Casey.
I'm Sam.
And glad to be talking to you. It's Halloween today. You got any big Halloween plans?
No. I mean, what can you do in a global pandemic specifically? I'm taking, like, trick-or-treating wasn't canceled in my neighborhood, so we're taking my kids trick-or-treating, and my parents are coming for that. And then we're going to just go to my in-laws for dinner. It's going to be pretty uneventful, low-key. My neighborhood's like super quiet, super tiny, so I don't know, we're not going to be out long. And it's cold up here, man. It's like, I don't know. I mean, we got 6 inches of snow yesterday. And now it's like 35 degrees out. So it's not exactly ideal Halloween weather, but
it seems like you could maybe just like strap the kid's candy bucket to a pool cue and just do it from a distance.
I know. You just ring the doorbell with it and then hold the bucket out.
Dude, we were in South Dakota this week and we went into town a couple nights ago to get some dinner. And all the kids were trick-or-treating downtown in Pierre, which is not a very big area, but the best costume. There was 2 little kids. One's in a blue tuxedo, one's in an orange tuxedo, and they had their Power Wheels car decked out like the dog car from Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was awesome. They were driving down the street in this thing. I thought that was maybe the best Halloween costume I've seen in a long time.
Dude, I love when parents are clearly the ones that are like, this is what you're going to be for Halloween. And the kids are like, I don't know what this is. And it's like, doesn't matter. This is what you're doing for Halloween.
Their dad was walking with him, and he looked very clearly more excited about it than they were.
Yeah, he's like ear to ear grinning. You're just like, dude, this Halloween is not about you anymore. You're 45 years old.
Right. Well, kids are like, they're like toys in a way. Like I put a sweater on my dog once in a while.
Yeah. Dude, did you, when I was a kid, my mom always had to, she always wanted to make our Halloween costumes. Did you guys do that?
No, we really didn't do Halloween. We were a part of that, Halloween and the Devil's Night was all, satanic and, you couldn't really do anything for Halloween. I think when I was in high school one year, we went to dinner or something, like some friends and I did. But other than that, I don't think I did anything for Halloween until college.
What?
Went to one of West Tate's sleazy Halloween raves.
Dude, I didn't realize you didn't do any Halloween stuff. Like my parents were my mom was definitely very much like, we would have harvest parties at church and stuff. And everyone would dress up, but it was always like no scary costumes. So you couldn't do like little red devils or zombies or anything like that. And
my mom dress up as like a Christian soldier or a biblical character or a American president or a soldier.
An American president, Abe Lincoln. We would do my mom always wanted to do themes. So we would I remember one year it was like a Wizard of Oz theme. And I honestly don't remember what some of the other ones were. I was like a bee once and my brother was a spider. My mom and my grandmother would always make the costumes. But what's so funny now, dude, is now that my parents were just like, I don't know if it was stereotypical of the boomer generation, but it was always like they wanted to be like cheap and frugal in some ways, but they so they would pick the dumbest times to be like frugal. And I didn't even think that much about this until recently. The other night I was talking to Jill, my wife Jill, and she was like, she made a comment about my mom brought bags over to make trick-or-treating bags for the kids. Like they would put stickers on them and decorate them. My kids, they just want pumpkins. That's all. And the little plastic pumpkins, that they just asked for those. And they're $1 at the Dollar Tree. It's not a big deal. And but my mom was like, well, why you spend money on those when I can just make them? And we were just talking about how, like, my mom always would say that, like, why spend money on that? We can just make it. We buy cakes for the kids for their birthdays. And she's like, I'll just make them a cake. We're like, no, we're going to buy a cake from a person who's really good at making cakes. Like, not that there's anything wrong with making your own cake, whatever. But, you know, my parents would always, like, act super frugal because they would home make stuff instead of, like, paying for it, whatever. But the irony is, like, they just weren't really that cheap because, you know, like they would just, like, we'd always have, like, you know, cable or like other things that were like, if you really wanted to be like save money, here's some like better ways to do it. And it was just like, my mom buys like this random stuff all the time and like gives it to us. She's like got like a box of notebooks. She's like, do you guys need notebooks? We're like, no, we don't. Why do we need notebooks? Jill's a teacher, so it's like, sometimes she's like, so, and every time you ask my mom for anything, it's never just like she yes ands every fucking request. Like it's an improv show. So you go, hey, do you have any binders? She's like, yeah, I do. What size do you need? Cause she's got like 5 different sizes. And then we're like, she's like, just like a 2-inch binder or whatever. And then
is she like an organized hoarder?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. My parents they've been quote unquote trying to move for the past 5 years and they haven't packed up anything. So like they have so much stuff in their basement. And
when they eventually die in their recliners, you know, you're going to have to pick all that stuff up.
Dude, we talk about that all the time. It's terrible. And it's going to fall on me because my siblings aren't going to do shit. It's going to be me and Jill that have to go through all of it, which means I get at least,
and you know, eventually, like if she is a hoarder, somewhere in that house, there's a closet full of like turds in bags.
It's not that
I've watched a lot of those shows. There's turds every time.
God, I hope not. But
my mom was like the queen of the like bargain shopping, you know, like the end of the aisle at Target where they'd have all the like the last minute markdowns. Dude, she got so much of the stuff we needed from there. Like, and it was good in some ways, but it was bad in other ways. Like, you know, when I was in 2nd grade, I liked Velcro shoes, but you know, they all of these Velcro shoes ended up on the end of the aisle at Target, and she bought me every size in those shoes. So it's like 6th grade summer going into 7th grade, and I'm like, I can't. I'm not wearing these Velcro shoes anymore. Well, they're brand new. It's like I can't wear these. Like you can't make me wear these. This is cruel. You know?
Dude, Velcro. I love. Do you remember like when you were first able to like buy your own stuff and you weren't subject to the fashion sense of your parents?
Yes.
That was a big deal for me. That was, dude, as soon as I could get a job, I was like, I need a job. I need to buy my own stuff. I look like a dope. I'm trying to start my own brand here. Like, cause it was in like the time that you get a job and stuff. It's like around the same time that I started getting into heavy music. And I was like, I need black jeans and they need to be skinny and I need black t-shirt. I was just like, had this swoopy fucking hair that went down over my face and studded belts. You got, you know, the Hot Topic shop.
Yeah. See, I didn't hit that till college.
Yeah.
My high school years, like we were so isolated. Like no one in my school was cool.
Yeah.
Like 0 people.
Dude, that lowers the stakes big time though. It's almost like you probably had a little bit greater sense of freedom in some ways to not just be like feeling like an idiot or an outsider. That must have been nice.
I mean, I think we all felt like idiots. I feel like that's an important part of growing up.
Yeah.
Like if you're confident, you're on your way to being like a Hitler or a you know, a serial killer or something. Like the natural state of a person who's 14 is humiliated and near suicide.
Yeah. Oh God, dude. I remember in youth group, you would have those nights where did you have these too, where you would they would have testimony nights?
Oh, it makes my skin crawl just hearing that.
Yeah, I'm not joking when I say that 80% at least of the kids who went up there were like, yeah, and then, I went to high school and I was feeling like a misfit and alone and I was suicidal. And then, Jesus fixed it for me. And like, that was all of them. It was really, really cringy. I mean, I said that too, so I was part of that cringe factor. I think I was one of those people, but it is, oh God, it really does make your skin crawl looking back on it.
Dude, what's great is now, like, looking back on some of those things, like, I forget what it was the other night. Maybe it was like a magazine or an article that we found from back in like high school days, right? And it was like an article about a kid who used to be goth. And then found his way back to Jesus. And like listening to this person describe like, and then I found goth and goth kids, and like listen to them talk about it. It's like this guy had no point of reference for what this was actually about. He dressed in black for a week and then scared himself straight.
He looked in the mirror and saw his black nail polish and was like, I can't do this anymore.
Dude, I have so many stories about like those cultural, full court presses that they used to put on us in like camp and at our youth activities and stuff. I got a lot of hours into those seminars,
I know. The only real like event I went to, were you familiar with Acquire the Fire?
Yes. I haven't heard that in forever.
Oh my God, dude, we need to get, the only one I went to was with Jesse, and we brought two of our non-Christian friends, and looking back on it, dude, it's like, oh, no wonder they never found what we believed interesting. It was insane. We should do next episode. We should just do an episode on Acquire the Fire in like youth group events, because
oh yeah.
The other one that I've been meaning to mention is because I almost like cringe a little bit every time I hear the term worldview, even though it's a generic term. But I keep forgetting to mention it, but I went to this thing called Worldview Academy in high school, which is basically a week-long indoctrination camp, and that was fucked up. So
it was like pre-course prep for your Liberty worldview class.
Yeah, dude, I'm not, no joke though. When I went to Liberty, it by the time like I was in the GNED classes, I mean it was all the same stuff. I was like, oh, we covered this in Worldview Academy. I felt like I was like, I mean, the first like few weeks where you go over, I don't know. I honestly don't even remember what you go over. I just remember the feeling of superiority that I had already kind of had an idea. It was like if you did AP math and you got to college and you took your like remedial math class and you're like, oh, I got this. That's what Worldview
Right.
Academy was for GNED.
Yeah. Have I ever told you my GNED story?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a few.
So our goal today was to talk about college experience, right? First episode, we covered early childhood and up through high school and some of the things that came along with that, how that affected like our faith and our jumping off point from there into college.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
So why don't you kick us off with that GNED story? Well, for the listeners, what's GNED? It's like, I don't even remember what it stood for. It's like a general education. I mean, do you remember what it stood for? It was GNED.
I can't remember.
Right?
Yeah, GNED. And I don't remember what it stands for, but some sort of general educational class. But it was
Nazi education. Something.
It was like, whether you liked it or hated it, it was like a very much a Christian indoctrination seminar.
Oh,
it was them laying out in very clear terms that you couldn't argue with why every single position held by the greater Christian community is the right way, right?
Yep.
It's the right way to think. And
you
before I
discuss,
jump into that,
general logical fallacies, you like hit all the basics, like slippery slope fallacy, straw man fallacy, the irony being
red herring.
The irony being like conservative Christians, evangelicals are like the most likely to perpetrate those fallacies. all I did, my entire education, my Worldview Academy, my book, Don't Check Your Brain at the Door, which is about how creation's right, evolution's wrong, and you need to get your friends saved. Like all these
Maybe
things
we
that
need
I read,
to go through that.
just like it was all slippery slope stuff. It was all, they would straw man everything, and then they love to set them up so they can knock them down. And then you go to college and you get the same thing. You're like, I mean, I learned this in high school and I'm hearing it again in college from people who have PhDs. So this must be true.
Yep. That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
Well, so I started out, going into college, I had a couple of different choices for colleges when I was in high school. I went to this little small high school. I was the second biggest fish in a very small pond. There was one girl that was smarter than me, but I thought I was pretty smart. I had taken like the ACT and gotten a really good score on it. I could pretty much go where I wanted to go.
Oh, really?
And
dude, you picked. Yeah, you fucked up.
Well, I kind of weighed some scholarship
Harvard,
offers.
There's Yale, and there's Liberty University.
Right. Maybe I'm saying I'm overstating my options a little bit, but my scholarship opportunities were between Northwood University, which was kind of like a car dealer brat school in northern Michigan, and Hillsdale College, which was, if their parents listened to Rush Limbaugh or whatever when you were growing up, he talked a lot about Hillsdale University as being like this conservative-minded college that puts out, this newsletter. I forget what the newsletter was called, but it was made to be this very prestigious school that only accepted 1,200 students, right? And so I signed up.
Out of 1,100 applicants.
Right.
It's like, that's cool that's your cap, but you're not really getting past it.
Well, so I got a half tuition scholarship to Hillsdale, I think it was, and it was dependent on GPA. Right. Okay. Now, I think at the time, I'm pretty smart. I'm smarter than 6 out of 7 people in my class. So I go to Hillsdale and quickly realize I am in way over my head. Like, I had never read a book that wasn't a Christian book. Like, we did no classical literature or anything at my high school. So the first week I'm there, they're like, hey guys, I know everybody's been through the Odyssey before, but why don't you guys just kind of skim through it again so that we can start off our discussion in this. And then I want you to write a paper on X, Y, and Z, your interpretation of it. And I start reading the Odyssey. I'm like, is this English? It's like if you put the King James Bible into like a word jumbler, So I quickly realized I was not as smart as I thought I was. I did pretty mediocre my first semester. My second semester was even worse. And it was baffling to me. Like, my school, we did individual books. You worked in your little cubicle at your own pace, and that was it. I'd never really had to sit through like a lecture and take notes and then be asked to write a paper on those notes. I've barely written any papers before, and this was a paper-heavy institution.
High school either. It's wild.
Yeah, they asked us to like give an interpretation of certain pieces of classic literature. I didn't even know what that meant. So I did horrible my first semester. My second semester, I was doing even worse. Plus, I hated it there. I mean, it was literally like the worst year of my young life when I went to Hillsdale, because it was just total culture shock. And this is like exposure on the lowest level. I mean, this is a school of 1,200 kids in the middle of nowhere. And like, to me, it was like Sodom and Gomorrah, like kids drinking, guys sneaking their girlfriends into the dorms. They put me on the hall with all the track kids, and they were all partiers. This school was tough, but the athletes, it was very clear that they got the way paved for them. Like, they got all the easiest professors. The professors went light on it because, they had to keep up their grades in order to compete. So it was just a totally foreign world to me. Luckily, I had a really cool roommate. He was great. I've totally lost touch with him. I wish I hadn't, because I really loved this guy. His name was Levi. And me, Levi, and 2 other guys from across the hall hung out the whole year. And I was just out of my element, and I hated it. I tried to get involved with some of the Christian groups on campus, and they were very unwelcoming. I mean, just rude. Made it clear that we weren't supposed to be there for some reason.
That's strange.
Yeah. And even Levi was, he was assured of himself. He was a bold dude that had started like some sort of small business before coming there. He played guitar. He really wanted to be involved with the worship team on campus because they did like a Wednesday night service. And they basically told him to pack up his guitar and get out.
Wait, this wasn't a Christian school, right?
No, it was a secular school that was made to be like very conservative.
Okay. So there was that pretty heavy overlap on the Venn diagram there.
Yeah.
So you just happened to get a roommate who was Christian.
Exactly.
Wow,
and the one of the cool things too was the guy across the hall that I hung out with. His name was Dave. Dave was from Massachusetts, and he was like a typical Christian hardcore kid.
Yeah, dude, Boston hardcore.
Yeah, he was into all of that. And so he got me really into all that. So that was kind of like my entry to heavy music, which becomes a lot more important in my life, after leaving Hillsdale.
Yeah.
But Dave introduced me to all that stuff. So, midway through my second semester, I'm like, I got to get out of here. Not only do I hate this and I'm miserable, but I'm doing horrible on my schoolwork and I'm going to lose my scholarship. I had been to Liberty on a class trip, like in like my junior year, I think, of high school, and just remembered liking it. I liked the mountains, it was just, and it was a long ways away. I went home every weekend when I was at Hillsdale. Like, I did not really immerse myself in the experience. And to be clear, like, there was nothing wrong with the people at Hillsdale. Like, they were fine. It was kind of rich, yuppie kids and stuff. But like anyone else would have done fine in that environment. It was just totally foreign to me, And so I applied to Liberty. And because I hadn't finished my second semester, I was able to submit my high school transcripts and tests and stuff like that. Based on that, they gave me a scholarship. If they would have looked at my college grades and stuff, they never would have.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to Liberty.
What was your first dorm at Liberty?
I was in the quads up on the hill.
Because you were were you on the same dorm as Brenton that year?
Yeah. Okay. Brenton was just another student at the time, but Tito was in there.
Because Mike, that year I did college for a weekend and stayed in your dorm. I don't remember you, I don't think, but that's when I first met Dan Kelly and Brenton, and I went to that dorm because of Tito, because he was there.
We had to have met. I was just unmemorable.
Yeah. I mean, who's memorable compared to Dan? So
yeah, he fills every room, that's for sure. Another person that came to college for a weekend was Laura, Joe McElroy's wife.
Oh, yeah.
So I met her like before Joe even did, which was pretty cool. Now thinking back on that, this couple that we hung out with that's married now and is still like touring and stuff in a band. Not during COVID, obviously, but normally.
Yeah, I mean, but they're like, that's pretty much their gig. I don't know how much it seems like it's their predominant source of income when COVID's been happening, and they're great. Comrades is their band.
Their band's called Comrades, and it's worth looking up.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Yeah, Joe he was my first roommate when Jess and I got that first house together.
Oh, I didn't know you roomed with Joe.
Yeah, dude, that was nuts. There's some fun stuff with that.
So you've seen his
wiener
monster like several times, huh?
God, yeah. Oh, yeah. He would be so mad if he knew we were talking about the fact that he showed his ween all the time.
The carpet matched the drapes.
Yeah.
So I went to Liberty. You know, the other thing that was important to me about Liberty was, as I said, I was really getting into music. Like, music was a big deal for me all through high school and stuff, because it was like one of the few outlets that I had. You know, I played a little bit of music, but I mostly just listened to it. I really wanted to get into a band. Yep. It seemed drastically important at the time. So I had heard that Liberty was a place where a lot of Christian bands got started. You know, I knew a couple that had started. I don't know why that stuck in my brain. It was just, that was a thought.
Yeah.
And
what was
so
the big one? It
was DC Talk was one.
Well, sorry, I'm thinking that's right. I'm thinking
Don't you dare besmirch DC Talk.
No, I never listened to them. But the metalcore band that came out, Winter Solstice, was that it?
Winter Solstice, yeah, that was a big one at the time. Calibrate the virus.
Yeah, one of those dudes was a Liberty grad, or a couple of them.
Well, so that was a thought in my mind going to it, is like, I want to be in a band, and Liberty is the place for me to play Christian music. So I went there with that in mind. And like, I had such a bad year at Hillsdale. Yeah. I felt so out of place and so like uncool in every way, you know? Like, before I went to hit Liberty, like, I kind of just remade myself. You know, I got a different haircut. I bought all new different clothes.
Yeah, you chemically straightened your hair, right? Wasn't?
Yeah. Yeah, I used the.
We all first found out that you had like curly hair.
Very curly, dark and lovely,
and like blonde, and it was. Dude, everyone thought it was cool. Like, no one was like thought it was weird. We were just like, that kid's got cool hair, and then it was like, oh god, that's
still like, knowing that you thought I had cool hair still makes me like, it gives me warm feelings.
Yeah. You know? That's all any of us wanted at the time, especially at Liberty, where there was an actual there was the hair code or whatever. You couldn't have your hair go past your ears. It couldn't be like past your eyebrows. There was all these like rules about how short your hair had to be, and all of us cool scene kids were we're always pushing the limits and getting reps for our long hair.
Yeah, there was a lot of run-ins with the law.
Yeah,
at Liberty, which you could do a whole episode on, like
with a ruler, and they're just like, hold on, is it an inch past your ears? They like bust out their measuring tape, and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to give you 18 reps.
Yeah, you got lots of cool RAs that were just like, hey man, just, you know, maybe clean it up a little bit. And then you had the guy who's like, he's there to enforce the rules. Like, this is the guy that the Stanford prison experiment. This is the guy that would first like put a nightstick in someone's rectum, you know?
It's exactly.
And he's like standing in the hallway, like taking notes and just handing out reps for hair and dress code violations. Oh my God. Another sensitive subject. April got reprimanded by, I think it was a male RA for her shirt being too short.
No way,
He said
dude.
He saw her back when she bent over.
I'm pretty sure he could, dude. And he's like, realized how hard his dick got and was like, this is a sin. I need to do something about it.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. I'm pretty positive that male RAs were not supposed to be able to ever confront women about the dress code.
Well, I can't say that with certainty. I would have to ask her, but I'm pretty
I'm
sure
not
that's
challenging
what she told
that happened. I'm saying like if that did happen, he easily could have like lost his status as an RA. That's
April's my wife, by the way, that we met at Liberty. So I got to Liberty. I was there at that point. Like, I couldn't go home on the weekends. I couldn't just bow out and go hang out with my old friends whenever I wanted to, I had to be there, which was the most important thing for me. I think I needed like to sever that connection with home. And I just instantly like made great friends at Liberty. Like, I loved my dorm. I had Ryan, Chris Deaton, Tito, Brenton was great, and there was just a whole bunch of guys that were awesome. And we like all hung out together right from the get-go. It was just fun, immediate. It was like exactly what I needed. I needed some sort of like positive experience away from home so that I could start kind of forming my own sort of identity, And I started like looking for a band. So I tried out for several, most of which were really, really bad. And then I went and played. So I had heard about some guys that were playing in one of the dorms. They were on was it East Campus? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, that was like where all like the fancy pants kids lived.
Yeah. So I
East
met
was
this
like the
kid
ones that
one
were
day.
Basically like apartments, right?
Yes. And they were nice. It was like the ritzier apartments.
Yeah, those are cool.
So I had met this guy one day, and I think we started talking because we both had like obvious scene kid hair.
Dude, everyone picked each other out like that. You would be walking around, you're like skinny jeans and scene hair. He can be my friend.
That's how I noticed April for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Like, she was obviously like a little scene girl, and I was just like, oh man.
Like the sides bangs or whatever. Everyone had like it
was kind of like teased up on top, so you just had like this giant bubble of hair.
Yeah, that was always teased on top. Oh my god.
So I met this kid, and he was just like instantly just an interesting guy right from the get-go.
His name was his name?
It was Dan.
Oh.
It was Dan. And dude, Dan, like, I don't remember where we met, but we met, and he started, we started talking. I instantly was like, oh man, this guy's awesome. And then I ran into him again, and we started talking about music. And at the time, he was going back to the dorm with 3 cans of keyboard cleaner up under his shirt that he was going to huff.
Oh my God. That makes so much sense.
Such a Dan story, right? and he was telling me about his band that he had back in PA, as Pennsylvania people say, and they were trying to get started again. They needed a singer. I'm like, oh my word, this is like exactly what I almost said. Oh my God, but I never would have said that at the time.
Yeah, you can't take the Lord's name in vain. Yeah, I think you could actually get reps for that, right?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, very serious offense. So Dan invites me to come try out for their band. So I went over to their dorm one day. Actually, I had been talking to Ryan a little bit, but not much. I didn't really realize that Ryan was into metal and stuff. He was in my dorm on the quads, and I told him I was going to try out for a band. He goes, oh, hey, tell him I want to try out too. I'm like, well, what do you do? He's like, I play guitar. So I took Ryan along with me, and we went to try out in the quads. And Dan and Ryan like instantly like hit it off and started playing like some like, metal songs we were all familiar with. I think they played like some As I Lay Dying songs together. Oh, yeah. And I was just like, holy crap. Like, this is it. These guys are awesome. like, I can't believe that I'm sitting here with these guys. Like, this is amazing. Chad, it was in Chad's dorm, and he was playing bass. And so I don't know. This is a really long story that's not interesting to anyone except for me. But I started hanging out with these guys, and instantly, like, this was it for me. Like, that was exactly what I was looking for. That became like my identity as a whole, was like, I'm in a metal band and I'm going to do this, and we're going to get signed to a record label.
That was all I wanted, like going to Liberty, and it never worked out for me.
Well, yeah. So I started hanging out with those guys a lot. We started writing music and playing stuff together. At the time, we had a drummer that lived in North Carolina, so he traveled up for shows, and it was a big nightmare. Anyways, we get really into all that. It starts to catch up with us a little bit, which is at Liberty, you had a curfew.
Oh, yeah.
And if you wanted to not abide by curfew, you had to sign out. And you had to sign out to like either a single man or a married couple's house.
Could you do?
And
could it be a single person's house?
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe
I think you could only sign out to a married couple's house.
I know they had to be over a certain age.
Yeah, they had to be over. They had to be. No, they didn't. I don't think it was age. I think they had to be like at least like a junior, maybe.
Well, they would call them. Like if you signed out to them, they would call them and make sure that you were actually where you said you were.
Yeah, and if they were cool, they'd be like, "Yeah, they're there. They're here." And I don't know.
So that was like a whole thing. Was like finding people that you could sign out to, so you could go to shows and stuff.
Yeah, I had friends that got married young, and I would just use them to sign out a couple of times. And I was friends with our RA at that time, so it wasn't just like a random I sign out there when I want to go to shows. I actually we would go to their house a lot. Like my wife and I, she was my girlfriend at the time, but we used to go to their house all the time. They were good friends of ours. It was one of my wife's best friends. So they got married young, and like we would just be able to like. So it was easy to just sign out there and like have it be believable.
I remember one time, like, okay, so April and I met on campus. So, dude, it's so hard to cherry pick like which things to talk about during all this because there's so many funny stories. Long story, but April and I contacted her on Facebook, ended up meeting her in person down the road after Ryan intercepted the Facebook message and messaged her back from my account.
What a pervert.
Yeah, whole nother thing. It's all right. I love Ryan.
I mean, that's basically his personality in a nutshell. So
I remember at one point signing out to Wes's parents' house, which we stayed at, right? But I stayed in Wes's room, and April was supposed to stay in another room. At one point, she came into Wes's room. He had a giant pile of teddy bears in the room. And so we made out in his pile of teddy bears until like I think I touched her butt, and then it became this is going too fast. Like we got to leave room for Jesus here.
Yeah, were you filled with Christian shame and guilt afterwards?
So much shame and guilt, dude. That's the story of my life. Like you could just categorize my life in like, a bar graph of shame and guilt, Yeah.
I definitely didn't. I got lucky in a lot of ways where I don't have this. I did the quote unquote right thing for most of my life. So we avoided having sex until we got married like good Christians, but
us too.
You occasionally, things get going, you make out pretty hard, and you're like, and then I remember like
nowhere in the Bible does it say that you can't dry hump in the passenger seat of your truck.
I remember like there are times being where it's like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do this. But honestly, I never particularly felt guilty about that. Like there were lines that if I crossed them, I know I would have felt guilty. And I'm sure I did from time to time, but for the most part, like I never really felt like, I don't recall a lot of feelings of guilt. I guess I got lucky there, but I had a strong enough resolve in conscience where like whatever lines I drew, I managed to just not cross them. So it was easy. I think I just got like, as opposed to like other friends of mine who, are in their 30s and in counseling because they're still dealing with that type of trauma. And it's just,
it was like a worm that really burrowed into the core of your apple,
Yeah, dude, it's some dark stuff. I don't know. I guess
what was
I got
funny
lucky.
Is like when it came to like, dating and stuff, like you would have these moments where you crossed a line, like you, squeezed a boob.
Yep.
And so you'd have this big discussion about like, I want to respect you. And I feel like I disrespected you. And you're two consenting adults at this point. Like these are 20, 21-year-old people. And it was this big ordeal. We got to slow down. We need to concentrate on our relationship with God, blah, 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 blah.
That's, dude, every couple went through that. We need to take a step back and really, really focus on our relationship with God and get closer to Jesus.
There was no going back, though. Like, no. Once she squeezed a boob, like, you were a boob squeezer now, and that was going to happen every time. There was no, like, dialing back the clock at all.
Oh, no, dude. I mean, that's how anything works. Like, even think about it now. Like, if you, like, I guarantee any Christian couple that didn't have sex, that maintains the same set of beliefs, that didn't have sex until they got married, that get married and through either, I don't know, loss of a spouse or divorce, or for whatever reason, they're not together anymore. I guarantee you, into their 30s or 40s or 50s, no one is thinking, or if they're thinking it, they're not doing it. They're just, no one's not having sex before they get married. Like you don't do that for 20 years and then just be like, okay, so now I'll just put a stop to it until I find the right person. No, you open that floodgate and that is what you do now. You do it.
I got an itch and it needs scratching.
Yeah. It's
on the regular.
Yeah. It's funny because all of this stuff, though, is like all these experiences. Like this is what most kids experienced, like in high school or 8th grade, maybe even 8th grade.
We didn't get to them till late. So, like, I had my big identity crisis, where my parents had to be concerned about whether or not I was going to do something productive with my life. Like, I did that in college rather than in 8th grade.
Oh my God. I remember my major crisis in college of like, what am I doing? I shouldn't be. Well, I got a Bible degree, so it's just like I remember being a year into that, being like, this is a mistake. Like, what am I doing? And then
dude, at least you weren't a worship major.
I know, dude. I just was talking to a friend about the idea of worship majors the other night. Like that was even Bible majors at Liberty knew worship major was bullshit.
It was openly discussed. Like, that's a waste of time.
And whenever someone would tell you, like, I'm a worship major, you're like, why don't you just be a music major? And they're like,
It was like music major or Bible major was too hard, so I'm a worship major because you don't have to be that good at anything.
Dude, but they sold it so hard at Liberty. They were like, it's important to get a worship degree because your job, what you're going to do is you're going to leave here and get a job at a church,
a mega church,
and you're going to write Christian songs for other people to sing. And if you write songs that are theologically inaccurate, you're leading all those people astray, and the stakes are really high. And you're just like, I remember hearing that at Liberty, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Have you heard worship songs? Have you listened to any of them? The lyrics are so dumb. The lyrics are just like,
it's like country music. Like you could put some basic terms on refrigerator magnets and just rearrange them.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, you just repeat the same things over and over again, and it's just like, he's so great, we love you, praise be to him, his name on high, hallelujah, 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 like 50 times in a row, and it's like, and then that's your song. It literally could be pulled out of a random word generator just you only drop like Christian words into. It's disgusting. And then and they're telling you the stakes are high and you need to give them $25,000 a year so you don't fuck up a church. It's like, get out of your own way. Everyone knew that was such nonsense at Liberty, even there.
So we had a discussion, I think it was earlier this week, about coming up with the most sexually suggestive worship song that we could possibly write. And I think that's going to have to happen at some point.
Yeah, we should definitely write our own. Maybe I'll like rope some friends in on it and put them to music. Some generic Christian chord progressions.
I don't know how to put a bow on this whole thing. I'm going way too long with all this, but after so April and I started dating like at the end of my sophomore year. At the time, the band is just really getting started and stuff. We had some plans for the summer or, after the summer, but really from that point forward, like April was my priority and I kind of forego all, like friendships and relationships and stuff like that with most people, just because April and I are we're so, and just so involved with each other, like, and it was good. There's a lot of great things about that, but it also like, I think both of us like missed out on some really good friendships and stuff because we were so involved with each other, and we could have done both, if we were prioritizing a little. It's just like, you go from nothing to anticipating it like your whole life to all of a sudden, like you found this person and it has to be the person that you're going to marry because you kissed this person and you can't undo that.
And you're like, I've been doing this for what, 6 months? How am I supposed to just restart? I can't do that. I just need to get married. I don't have forever. I'm 21 years old in college. I don't have forever. I just need to do this. I guess this is where I'm going. Yeah.
And that was, that's another whole subject, but like the pressure to get married in that community is astronomical for young people.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Don't date. Oh, you're dating? Okay. Well, you kind of need to marry this person. You know,
I luckily didn't ever feel that pressure. I mean, I got married young. I got married 3 days after my 21st birthday. I was still in college.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm past a decade, on marriage.
Me too. I'm at 11 years this year.
Yeah. Oh, so I mean, we got married. That's right. We got married around the same time. You're just what? I think you're a little over a year ahead of me, but.
Yeah. Did you come to my wedding?
No.
I forget.
No, you didn't like me enough then to invite me. So.
Oh, that's garbage. I invited everybody.
No, I did not get invited. Jesse went. I didn't go.
Jesse was in the wedding.
Yeah, that's right. You guys stayed closer though for a while. Like dude, after college, we like really didn't. We just didn't like stay connected after college.
No, we didn't.
Which is
too bad.
Yeah, we don't. That spot, like from basically post college to when we started talking again, is like kind of like it's not something any of us really know much about.
Well, and it's funny because it's like a thought that I've had continually because you and Jesse and I hung out a little bit when he and I were living together.
Yep.
And I've just like always thought like I should have spent more time with those guys, Yeah. Because you guys were a little more grounded than, my other friends.
I know. It's weird to like move on from college and realize the people who like you should have invested, like the relationships you should have invested in versus the ones that were like a waste of time. I definitely made that.
Well, so April and I got married right after college. We spent a summer apart, which is a whole another weird chapter of our lives, but we got married this fall after I graduated, and we've been together ever since. And luckily for us, getting married young and, to the first person either one of us had really ever dated, like turned out to be a good thing for us. A lot of people that we knew were not so lucky.
I know, dude. We know so many people who did not have a good experience with that. I'm thankfully that, I mean, my wife, we started dating when I was in senior year in high school, and then we went. She's part of the reason I went to Liberty. I don't think I didn't really admit that to most people at the time. I think if she was local, I might have stayed local, but she was already there, and I wanted to go there because of the influence of my youth pastor. So and then we just, stayed together through all of college, and then, got married. So but I was always just not interested in, I don't know. I was low key in that way. I didn't have much of an interest in like dating, and when you're not thinking about like just like sleeping around because you're not that kind of guy, and there were people who were about that life at Liberty, but it was like, yeah, they knew how to find each other because they were about that. But if you weren't, like, you weren't going to find, I don't know, it was just weird. You had to just like, that's not what you were doing. So you're just like, I'm in a relationship. I'm happy. Like, I mean, what's the point of trying what you could just break up because there's so many people there, or you could just like not.
Well, and that's like I think, one of the things we've talked about with this podcast is like, we're not trying to be hateful towards Christianity. And there's like some very good things about the model that we were brought up under. And like this idea of like, you're young, you should sleep around and you should just have casual relationships with all these other people. And like, you're too young to have a serious girlfriend. You should break up with this person that you're really emotionally invested in. Like, I don't think that's a great plan either. And a lot of people like kind of told me that when we were engaged, especially. It's like, you should not be engaged. You guys should spend some time apart. You should do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that there would be no benefits to experiencing more of life before you settled down and committed to a person. But,
right.
For us, it would not have been a good thing. Like we're lucky to have done what we did.
Yeah.
Because we were so well suited for each other.
Yeah, I know. We're real lucky in that way because I was always an emotional person, very emotionally invested, possibly too much. And in some ways, in an unhealthy way, because you don't learn how to navigate those type like relationships or heartache or breakup. Like you don't learn how to navigate those things when you're so closed off to the idea of that, and it's just. I'm thankful that it worked out for me. Like that. Now I'm, been married for over 10 years, got 2 kids. Like I'm just kind of doing the thing that I kind of expected to be doing at this point in my life in some way, minus the fact that, I still don't know what I want to do for a living. And I just don't feel like
no one does
career path, but it's fine. As a whole, it just, it did work out, and I dodged a lot of bullets just because of my general demeanor, and which is good. I feel
like after taking a dump on worship majors, I should add that, I'm a communications major, which is equally as useless. So it was kind of like, pot calling the kettle black to tell them they were wasting their time.
Yeah. Yeah. Comms is I don't know, man. I'm just glad that your degree was as useless as mine. It means a lot to know other people are struggling with their degree choices. Dude, in my crisis of faith, when I almost switched, I was like, I need to do something that I was interested at the time. I was like, I think I might like computers. Like I should do like computer science. I was like, I was like building my own computer. I was like, this is kind of interesting stuff. Like I was just learning more about it. And I'm like, why don't I get into that? And then just like, but my thought was, that's hard. That I don't know anything about it, which is the point of college, to learn something you might not know anything about. But I didn't think of it that way. I was like, I just need to get a degree. So I'm like, I just stuffed those feelings down, just pressed them down after I spent a night crying about it. And then woke up the next day, business as usual, studying Revelation and learning about how Jesus was coming back soon and coming back to slaughter his enemies and take us all to heaven and jerk us all off together.
Is he gonna jerk us off?
I don't know. I thought it was in there. It's something I don't.
So I thought heaven sounded kind of boring, but I don't know. You've piqued my interest.
It's just handies, though. It's not like it's getting. If if you can do that for eternity, if handies work for eternity, then I mean, it's probably not bad.
I mean, as long as he doesn't squeeze too hard.
I don't know.
Dude, I would love to at some
a hole
point
in his hand.
have
Is that too bad?
Oh my God. Oh, that's what those are for. All right, well,
I think it's a good joke to wrap it up.
That's super offensive.
Yeah.
I would love to at some point have a discussion about like the idea of heaven and just what your interpretation of that was, because I don't feel like I was unique in thinking that the way people described heaven sounded really boring.
Oh my God, so boring. Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about that next episode, because the iterations of it were insane. You listen to it as a kid and you're like, I'm gonna say that this is awesome to other people because I'm told. It's like it's gaslighting. It's like Christian gaslighting. You're just like, this is heaven and it's great, and you're like, it is.
You're gonna praise God forever. Like, does this mean singing these awful songs like forever? Because I already don't like these songs.
Yeah, dude, I gotta tell you, we gotta wrap this one up. I gotta get going, get my kids ready to go trick or treating. But I think next episode I'm gonna jump in and talk about some fun college stuff, because my college experience. Well, you did the whole music thing. I wanted to, I didn't get it, but I dove real deep into like the super Christian stuff, and oh my God, just a bunch of things just came to mind about my college experience on the same dorm. When we were on the dorm together, and it was a little bit different than yours.
Yeah, I am anxious to hear that, because I felt like, okay, so from my perspective, which we didn't hang out a ton in college. We went to a lot of the same events. You and I always had like good discussions and stuff, at the time. Like you would come down to our room and hang out. I'd go hang out with you guys sometimes, but like we didn't like spend a lot of like one-on-one time together. But my perception of you was always like, well, Sam's the real deal. Like, I feel like an imposter in all of this, and Sam is actually like doing it correctly.
That was the image. It was an image I wanted to have, but it was also based on a drive. But I still suffer from the same feelings of the typical imposter syndrome that a lot of people do, where you're like, and I did then too. And you're like, this is who I want to be, so I'm just going to talk it and be it, and then it'll be real. But what's more real than trying to talk it and be it, other than you feel like a phony all the time? So I have I got some interesting stuff. My life took some interesting turns in college, and I kind of forget about these experiences that I had. Whether it was like getting involved in this like speaking in tongues worship and prayer group once a week, to like eventually having this homeless woman who just got out of jail come and live with us for like a while until we got her back on her feet. Like there's all these like weird things that we did, and I'm like, and they're good things. Like some of it was great, and like that experience with this woman that my wife and I took in was like really life changing for me. And I was just like, but it was like the way that I just like we would just end up in these situations was like, what are we doing? How did we get here? We literally just got married, and now there's this person living in our guest room who we're afraid is going to be doing meth when we get home.
You were very much like, so we took two different pathways of Christianity, whereas like you were more the hippie-ish, Jonestown sort of Christian. I was more like the conservative, like Warren Jeffs type of Christian.
Don't get me wrong.
Not that you ever murdered people, or I ever was involved with young girls, but that's the logical conclusion to both sects. So
yeah.
And at some point, dude, a lot of the area. So the area that I work in part-time, right? I'm up in Kansas City a lot and stuff in Topeka. And that is where Westboro Baptist Church is.
Oh, what?
Yeah. At some point we need to like do something on Westboro Baptist, and I'll go up there and
get some interviews, Borat style interviews.
Do some TikTok dances like in front of their church or something.
All right, man. Let's wrap this up. I get my kids in their Halloween costumes.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and stay tuned for more.
See you, everyone.